vida! Welcome to the Hey Boomer Show, the show for those of us who believe that we are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. My name is Wendy Green, and I am your host for Hey Boomer. And I'm home from Costa Rica. What an amazing trip. And I want to thank Rhodes Scholar for making this trip possible for myself and 15 other travelers with an amazing group leader. We will talk more about that as the show goes on, because this show is going to be about travel. But if you would like to check out some of the Rhodes Scholar trips, please go to road scholar.org/heyboomer. I also want to tell you about a new sponsor of mine. It is called Annie's Kit Clubs, and Annie delivers creativity right to your mailbox. You get a new shipment every month with all of the supplies and instructions for the craft that you are going to work on that month. So whether you like crocheting or quilting or knitting or a variety of different kinds of crafts, which is what I prefer, you will get a new kit every month. So if you're into something like making an Afghan or a quilt, you're going to get a piece of that each month. But if you do the variety pack like I do, you're going to get a complete kit each month. So no matter your age, your skill level, or your crafting interest, you can explore your favorite hobbies with convenient kits delivered right to your door. Go to annieskitclubs.com and use promo code BOOMER at checkout to get 50% off on your first order. So like I said, today's show is going to be about travel. And I have joined up with my friend and co-podcaster, Nicole Christina, who is the host of Zestful Aging. Hello, Christina.
Nicole. Hello, Wendy. Don't worry, that's a common thing. Welcome back. I've been so enjoying following you and your Costa Rican adventures on Facebook. It just sounds like it was magnificent.
It was magnificent. Yeah. So let me tell them a little bit about you and your amazing career. So Nicole has the podcast Zestful Aging, and it is a multi-award-winning interview show heard in 106 countries. Wow. She has more than 300 interviews. I'm like half of that, so I'm a few years behind you. And her guests are change makers from a variety of disciplines: filmmakers, writers, advocates, poets, musicians, scientists, athletes, entrepreneurs, and many of them are top leaders in their fields. And recently, Nicole was picked up by her local NPR affiliate in New York. She is a contributor to the online magazine Crunchy Tales, Smart Stories for Late Bloomers. And after more than 30 years as a psychotherapist, Nicole created Zestful Aging Coaching, providing support to women who are seeking to incorporate more zest in the second half of their lives. You can find out more about that at Nicole's website, zestfulaging.com. All right. Now we are going to co-host, so it's your turn.
It's my turn to interview you, Wendy. And as most folks know, Wendy Green is the host of the inspiring live show and podcast, Hey Boomer. This show serves an important inspirational role for people from about 55 to 75 who are looking for ways to live meaningful and fulfilling lives. Wendy has worked in training and development for most of her corporate career. And in 2005, she started a kids art business, an after school enrichment program, and was recognized as the franchisee. It sounds like a sort of
franchise.
Thank you. Franchise of the year in 2009. And in 2013, she trained for and was certified as a life coach. She served as the president of the Reedy River Rotary Club in Greenville, South Carolina for 2 years. She's raised 2 successful children, is a grandparent to 4 outstanding and lovable grandchildren. And besides the podcast, Wendy offers a 6-week What's Next group coaching program to help people find their vision for the next chapter of their lives.
That's it. And so we both love podcasting, we both love coaching, and we both love travel.
That is exactly right. We're kindred spirits, but I would love to hear more, Wendy, about your trip, because my sense, as I said earlier, looking at the Facebook, this was just not an ordinary trip.
This was an amazing trip, Nicole. There were 16 of us on the trip. The group gelled like it was like magic, the way everybody just got along. And our group leader was fantastic. He was so knowledgeable. He was knowledgeable about the history of Costa Rica, about the government of Costa Rica, about all of the birds that we saw. I mean, he could tell from their sounds.
Yeah.
And of course, he could spot them. We would be like, where?
Right.
And we stayed in the cloud forest, and we stayed in the rainforest, and then we went down to the Pacific coast. And I mean, and we visited people in their homes, Nicole, and that was probably the most life enhancing, life changing, life meaningful experience of the trip, to see not what tourists see, but to see the everyday life of the people that were living there, and the gratitude, the pura vida. What they say that means is that happiness is not about getting what you want. It's about being grateful for what you have. Wow. I know.
Boy,
and
that's something to live by.
I know. And you
And
saw that everywhere.
And there was a clip of a video of a gentleman playing guitar, and you guys were all around a table, and some people were singing.
I know. I was crying. I mean, he has a small village. It's called El Silencio. He's a leader in the village. He took us around, showed us his grocery store. We went to the kindergarten, and Costa Rica is very about self-sufficiency and sustainability. And so in the kindergarten, they provide meals for the mothers and the children at lunchtime. They have like a bucket of trash that has been picked up out of the ocean, and they say, this is bad, we don't want this. And then they have clean sand and toys for the children to play with. He took us to the church, and then he took us to his home, where they served us star fruit juice and some little snack that they had made, and he brought out his guitar. And here we are sitting. I mean, none of us would probably be comfortable living in the home that he lived in, and his graciousness. And then he started singing, and we all started singing with him. I was looking around and just in tears. It was just the most beautiful experience. Thank you
You'll
for
never
asking about
forget that. I mean, I think,
Never.
we talk about aging in a way, we both have different words for it, but I think at the end of life, that's what we remember, not like, did I get the, fanciest car or the jewelry or what? It's like, remember that time we were sitting around and I mean, that's the stuff, right? That
That's
makes
the
a life
stuff.
meaningful.
Yeah. Now you have a trip coming up that
I
if I
do.
wasn't so afraid of the cold, I would go with you. Tell me.
I love that you were so clear. There wasn't even like, let me think you were like, I grew up in Miami. There is no way I am going to Finland. You were just like, No.
In
It was in
February.
fact, oh, well, right. There's that. So I'm not making, yeah, it's going to be cold, but the reason why I got really interested in Finland is because I interviewed Heli Mende, who is the sort of the tourist director of Finland. And because they now won for the sixth year in a row, the happiest nation, there's been a lot written, very interesting stuff written. There was a big piece in the New York Times. And, she had a lot to say about why Finland is so happy. And I thought that's a place that I think would be really fun to go to. And maybe we can learn something and bring it back. So the trip is the end of January in 2024, but I'm starting to advertise it pretty soon. My website is still under construction, and that'll be fixed up in the next week. But we are going to fly into Helsinki, and there's a huge as there's a design scene there. So we'll go to the design museum. There's a lot of other museums. I'm going to go to the Marimekko outlet. People can come if they want to. Then we're going to take the train up to Lapland. And the thing that's Lapland is famous for the Northern Lights. And I was really clear when I was organizing this. I wanted it to be about art and nature. And boy, nature is high on the list here. We're going to be going to a wildlife preserve where apparently polar bears are seen. And we're going to be riding on a reindeer-pulled sled. Your nightmare.
No,
And
but it sounds like so much fun
it sounds
too.
fun. And then their air and their water is some of the cleanest, which is ironic. We talk about that now with the wildfires. They are very into organic food and local food. I don't know how much of that we'll have access to in the winter, but we'll also sauna. And I think just really, it's not a long trip. It's just a week. But so essentially, go into Helsinki. There's a direct flight from JFK, and then we'll take the train up to Lapland, do our stuff, and then we're actually going to take a flight back to Helsinki, hang out a little bit more, see some more stuff, and then head back home. So it's really like a taste of Finland, and we'll have also a private guide, and 2 meals are included. So I'm really excited for it. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but most people know that, Finland keeps getting awarded this happiest nation. And a lot of it has to do, 70% of the country is covered with trees. Nature's really important to them. And, they are, it's simplicity, right? It's not what's the next thing I'm going to buy on Amazon. That's not really their culture. So
Right.
I have some stuff to learn, and I hope that I come back feeling like I have a new perspective.
Biggest place on the planet.
That's right. That's
And
right.
you snowshoed and you saw the Northern Lights, and yeah,
Right,
it
right. I
sounds
mean,
amazing. And I wish that I wasn't so cold averse.
I'll
But
send you lots of pictures.
send us pictures. I know.
Yeah.
So we love travel. So what is it about travel that is so important to you, Nicole?
I was thinking about that before we got on because I knew we would talk about it. I'm also planning a trip to walk part of the El Camino de Santiago in April, and I've already started preparing. And I just downloaded Duolingo to brush up on my Spanish. And for me, the prep is really fun. A lot of people say they love the prep. What am I going to bring? All this stuff. Think it also gets me out of my own little bubble of some of it's privilege and some of it's just my experience. I was recently in Holland, and as most people know, they bike everywhere,
They
and they've
do.
got the grandparents, they got the kids. It's like and I thought it was just so nice to see how other people live and kind of get me out of my own head. My problems felt a little bit more distant, got a better perspective. And I think there's some humility, I think, that comes to like, oh, this is the way you do it. Okay.
Mhm, mhm.
What about
Yeah.
you, Wendy? What what do you love about travel?
So it's funny that you said prep. I don't like that part of it. I like that, road scholar. When I go with them, they tell me what to do. They tell me what to bring. They tell me make copies of everything. I
Yeah.
don't want to have to. I don't like to have to think about it. But it's when I'm there and I'm out of my comfort zone in some, because everything's new. Even if I go to a Western European country, it's like you said, the Holland, it's all new and different. I remember sitting in Amsterdam and watching the bikes go by and all the
Mm-hmm.
bikes at the airport parked waiting for people to just pick one up. So seeing a different perspective, I think we get so entrenched in our own way of doing things, in our own little culture. And
Mm-hmm.
I think seeing other cultures and meeting people who are living lives in different ways and wonderful ways, overcoming hardships, but also appreciating their village and their life and their families and learning. I think that's one of the things we both talk about on our podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're never told to learn. And just to keep that curiosity going is one of
Yeah.
the, yeah,
That's
that's a,
it. That's it. And there's research that shows that in terms of happiness, because I've been thinking a lot about this, experiences are where the happiness lies, not new stuff. Although, as Americans, we tend to chase stuff and tend to be a little more materialistic. And I am, just because I'm a thrifter doesn't mean I'm not chasing new stuff. And but what we know is that experiences stay longer, they have more bang for their buck. So if you've got a little chunk of money, you might want to think about traveling with that or having an experience rather than buying a new patio set or whatever.
right. And travel doesn't have to be overseas, even just traveling to another place in the United States. I mean, here I live in Greenville, South Carolina. If I go up to Vermont and New Hampshire, where you are, you have those gorgeous mountains, and you have the whole New England area has a totally different feel,
Mhm. A
and
different
see,
culture.
right?
Mhm.
And so I think no matter where you go, car trip or halfway around the world, you're going to experience new things and new people. And my preference is not to stay in the 5-star hotels,
Mhm.
because how much time do you spend there anyway, right? You're out into the neighborhoods, into the country, just learn, pull off the road and see what's there.
I think that maybe something we should also touch on is it can help our resilience because my experiences is with travel, it doesn't always go 100% right, right? I mean, even if you have a great guide or you've researched it, like sometimes your plane, you miss your connection, or sometimes that restaurant you've been looking forward to trying is closed or whatever. I feel like it really asks me to be resilient and patient and really in the moment. Like, okay, so we're not doing that. What's the next thing? It's a different. It calls upon us to, I think, be different in the
Yeah.
moment.
Yeah, we actually had to experience that when we were flying out of Atlanta. We got to the airport and they told us our flight was delayed 2 hours, which would have meant we would missed our connection in Orlando. And they had no other way to get us to Costa Rica until Sunday, and this was on a Friday. And we're like,
Oh,
oh my gosh,
oh
that's not
yeah.
going to work.
Nope.
So, and they also, this particular airline was not plugged into the whole system, so they could not find us another flight.
Oh dear.
I know, low fare airline. So, my friend and I just started running from counter to counter, American, United, Southwest, trying to find, can you get us to Costa Rica? Can you get us to Costa Rica? And Southwest did. We canceled the other flight, got a refund, hook book. I mean,
You did it.
talk about being resilient and not getting like freaked out about it. You know,
Mhm.
we knew we had to get there that day. The tour was taking off, you know. So yeah, I
That's a
think
great
that's a good point.
example. Yeah, or losing luggage and you're like, "Well, I guess I'll just wear this dress again." Yeah, I have my toothbrush.
Right, right.
Sometimes
Pack your
stuff
overnight
happens.
bag, right? Pack your backpack with what you're going to need for the next day, just in
E
case.
exactly.
Yeah. Do you ever think about travel insurance when you
I
travel?
I do, and, I get it. I think for the way it works with my anxiety, or like I've had situations where, whatever, a family member gets sick, or, certainly when COVID was a little bit more present, that was important. I tend to get it. It just makes me feel better. I have been in a position where I haven't gotten it and I've lost some money. What about you?
Yeah. 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 I'm getting it. And, I have a trip coming up in less than a month. I can't even believe it, where I'm taking my grandson on a windjammer cruise off the coast of Maine. This is another Rhodes Scholar trip.
Wow, wow, wow.
I know. So, but I did get travel insurance for sure for that one because, if I get sick, if he gets
Yeah.
sick, I mean, yeah. So, but I can't believe I've got another trip coming up in a month.
That very different, yeah, very different geography up there. It's gonna be gorgeous. I'm actually gonna be up in Maine at the end of August, with a friend of mine, and then I just interviewed a woman at Dog Mountain, which is in northern Vermont, a really cool place. And so I'm gonna pop up and hopefully meet the woman that I interviewed face to face, which is always a lot of fun.
That is fun. I know,
Mhm.
because what we always meet people this way, right? Like we meet them on the air.
Mhm.
Yeah. So in fact, we were trying to think, how did we meet each other first time? And I don't remember.
I think I reached out because you did something, and I noticed when you put up your initial, picture, I'm like, "Oh, Sky Bergman, I interviewed her." Oh, like there's
Right?
overlap in our
Yeah.
interests. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What got you started in your podcast, Nicole?
Well, I've been a psychotherapist for 30 years. I still am. And I noticed that my clients were getting older just like I was. And they were asking questions like, what do I do now? I'm going to retire, or I'm thinking about retiring, or my kids are launching, or, my husband wants to watch the History Channel in his recliner, and I want to go a hot air ballooning, this kind of thing. And they were really bringing in these questions. And I had the same questions, being in my 50s at the time. And then I did some online training and some online courses. And my tech assistant said, I think you'd really like podcasting. And because I am not one to let the grass grow too long under my feet, the next day I contacted a friend of mine. I did a retreat with her, a meditation retreat. She's a fly fisher woman.
Oh,
And
wow.
the fly fishing takes place in really beautiful places, and she has done a lot of volunteer work with cancer patients. So I called her up and I said, "Vicky, can I come over and interview you?" And I always tell this story. I brought my little laptop, no tech. It
Right.
was just like I was sitting on her futon. And as she was talking about her love for fishing and her love for volunteering, I was looking out the window and I thought, I got to do more of this.
Hmm.
I'm home. This is,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't believe how fun this is. And that was more than 5 years ago. And she's still doing her fishing. I see her on Facebook sometimes. And, it's really been it's hard to put into words without getting a little choked up, but it's enriched my life in ways I can't find words for. And I know what that feels like.
Totally. I mean, you meet people like you, like Sky Bergman, like you meet
Mhm.
people that you never would have met otherwise. And
Mhm.
and then you have your audience that leaves you messages. Like I'm looking at the chat here, and they tell you that they're listening and they appreciate what you're talking about, and they appreciate the
Oh.
guests that you bring, and it's so fulfilling and enriching. You're absolutely right. And it was interesting in Costa Rica. I started to think about my show and my focus and my audience, and I had a couple of experiences there that I don't really want to get into the detail about now, but it made me think, maybe I need to refocus a little bit and be more specific about the topics that I cover, because I feel like in a lot of ways I'm all over the place. Which boosts my curiosity, right? You talk to authors who have reinvented themselves, and filmmakers, and travelers, and physicians, and all of this about reinvention. But I don't know, I'm going to start exploring that. And that's another thing I think that you get from travel is you start to rethink about some things in your life and reprioritize. And
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It gives you the space to say, do I really want to do that? Do I want to do more of that, less of that? Is this really that important? Which is that's so vital at this age where you're like, look, time is precious. I do not want to be throwing resources or time when it doesn't feel like I get anything back. So I've had a similar experience of thinking about, do I want to be more focused? But the feedback that I've gotten is that people really love the variety. And I love the variety.
I know.
And I had interviewed a podcaster years ago, really lovely woman, and I'm trying to remember. Oh, they had a very specific kind of thing that they would do. And I thought to myself as she was interviewing me, I think she's going to burn out because it was just the same thing all the time. And lo and behold, it didn't last long. But
It didn't last long. Yeah.
you would do it your way, and
Right.
you would pick out something you really love and do a deep dive. But
Right.
pros
And
and
I
cons.
may intersperse that focus in with some of what I'm doing, because I do like the variety, and I do think the audience likes the variety. What do you think, audience? Tell me. Yeah. So what are some of the favorite places that you've been to, and what was favorite about them?
Well, I'll tell you, I'm still processing this. So, one of the reasons I went to Amsterdam in April is it was a bucket list item of mine to go to the Anne Frank house. My mother's side of the family are all immigrants from Eastern Europe. They're all Jewish. And it was just something, the Anne Frank book and the movie as a kid, and many of us felt this way, was it just it really stuck with me. And so it was a bucket list item, and I knew I had to do that. And I had interviewed a woman. Was a guest of mine, a two-time guest by the name of Sophie Poldermans, and she is like the world's expert on teenage girls in Holland who were resistance fighters. And I thought, whoa. So she's just written a follow-up book. It's still in Dutch right now, but she got a big movie contract in the
Oh,
US. So she
wow.
covered these three girls that would lure Nazis into the woods and shoot them. These are teenage
Gosh.
girls. I mean, crazy stuff. So I contacted her and I said, Sophie, I want to meet you for real in person. And she took me to the grave outside of Amsterdam, actually outside of Haarlem, of Hannie Schaft, who was one of these girls and who did not live to see the end of the war. She was shot. And she took me to the grave. We brought flowers, and I'm getting goosebumps now. She did an interview with me on the steps of this graveyard of all the resistance fighters. And it was otherworldly to me for so many reasons. And she was so gracious and lovely. She was just launching her second book that was more of a personal look inside these three teenage girls. So in terms of like moments of I can't believe this is really happening, that that was one of them, that I got to meet somebody who did things, the research that was it just really
And her
resonated
name
with me too.
is Hannah.
Is the young girl's name is Honey Shaft, Shaft, and it's Honey, but that's an abbreviation. That's a nickname.
So the
But
author, what's
the
the author?
author is Sophie, Sophie Poldermans, and she actually is a human rights attorney. She hasn't done that for a while, but she was in Kosovo and she was all over the world doing war crime stuff. And so, this is not an ordinary kind of gal. So we
Yeah.
had this, it just felt so deeply meaningful. So that was one that was really recent. The other travel experience I had was in Washington State. You had mentioned we can go, in the continental US. And some people know there's a chain of islands called the San Juans off of Washington State. And there's, I think, 5 main islands. And I was on in a state park, and I walked very far out on the stone edge, and I saw an orca mother and her calf swim by, and it was really like I was so overwhelmed that I didn't know whether to laugh. I was kind of laughing and crying and like, and I'll never forget that kind of beauty, and that, I'm a nature girl, so that really
Yeah. Yeah.
impacted me. I never expected that. I knew the orcas moved through those channels, but so those are just a couple of examples. And I really feel like at this point, I'm 61 and I want to spend the rest of my life doing adventure. I did go out in southern Florida. I think I shared this with you in the Everglades. I went python hunting with Donna Khalil at midnight. They made a documentary about her. I said, I'm not touching any snakes, Donna, but I had to do the headlight, and then she said, well, you may have to hold the tail. I'm like, I did not sign up for this. But she's all over social. So if anyone wants to see gigantic pythons, Donna Khalil, Kalil, in her 60s, does not have to work. This is what she does every day.
Yeah. It's a lifestyle. It's a
It is.
lifestyle. Yeah.
It's her reason for it's her purpose.
Right. And I think we talk about that too. We all have to find a purpose. And our purpose, at least I can speak for myself, is to share with people. I'm going to be 70 in August, and to share with people, that you can still be engaged and make a difference and find meaning in your life, because that's what makes it worth getting up every morning, and it doesn't have to be curing cancer. It can be just being friendly. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons to be human. So
Yeah.
I had my parents used to like to travel a lot, and I had an experience as a kid where they took us to El Salvador and Guatemala, and it was, talk about an experience. I was about, maybe I was 10, and we flew into El Salvador, and they took us on a local bus into Guatemala City, which means there were people on the bus with chickens and and here we are, these little kids from Miami going, oh my gosh. We get into Guatemala City. It was in a state of siege. And
Oh
so
my
there,
goodness.
I know. So there's people with like big machine guns standing around on the street. And I'm like, oh, where are we? And then they took us up into the mountains. And we saw the women walking with the baskets on their heads as we're driving up into the mountains, and we get up there on this volcanic lake, and the stars, oh Nicole, the stars were just phenomenal because there was no other light. And I remember going to the market, and they all wanted to touch our hair because they hadn't seen blonde hair. And talk about opening your eyes as a young child to say, wow, there's a whole different way people are living on this planet. It was phenomenal. What a trip.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow. Were they educators, or what was their background?
Well, no. I mean, at that point in time, my mom and dad worked together. He had a advertising and public relations firm, and they just like to travel. They just
That's different than just that's like immersing yourself in
I
this. I mean,
know.
that's next level.
That's brave, right? Take 3
Oh,
little blonde-headed kids to this third
wow.
world countries. Yeah. It
Wow.
was pretty amazing.
So you got the bug pretty early.
I got the bug. I did. And I've been I went to Brazil, to Rio, for work. I went to the Netherlands for work. Yeah. So yeah, sign me up. Where are you going next? Okay, I'll go. Well, not Lapland in February. That's a little cold for me.
It's cold for
Oh, darn it.
everybody.
Because I do want to see the Northern Lights. It's
Well, there
going
are
to
other
be,
places to see them,
yeah.
usually in the northern hemisphere. Oh my goodness. And we had
So
talked about hoping that we could plan something together in the future.
I know we did because, I told you I had to do some workshops on this trip to Costa Rica. And so we started brainstorming, what could we do that from our expertise to offer as part of the experience of a trip? And you have a
Mhm.
lot of experience with mindfulness practices, right?
I do mindful eating quite a bit. In my psychotherapy practice, my specialty has been on eating and food difficulties. And I guess I'd love to throw it out to your audience and ask, what would you like for programming?
That's a
Um,
good, yeah.
what would make it special? What would make it um, a a little different than just signing up for some group tour?
Yeah. And I mean, we've been kicking around so many different places that I get an email once a week from Nicole, by the way, what about Japan? What about,
Well, they have this new, yeah, you get it like 30 seconds after I learn about it, because I'm like, yeah, what about, because they do these long hikes into the forest and moss covered spiritual treks, and I'm like, ooh, I hadn't considered that. Never been there. But I have to say, I'm a little squirrely on long flights now. I just like,
I know.
everything's so small and you're just smooshed in. You can't get up to it. So I don't know if Japan is going to make it on my
Yeah, I
ultimate.
don't know about Japan. I was telling you, some people on my trip were saying, what about Iceland, right? We've been in the tropical rainforest. Why don't we go to
Mhm.
Iceland next? And
I go back there in a second.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
And of course, Spain and Portugal, you're talking about the
Hmm.
trail in Spain.
Yep, the
Whew,
Camino. Yeah, and
you
it's
have to
interesting.
train for that.
Well, yeah, it's mileage for sure. There's a guy, and I don't know his name offhand, but I've been searching a lot of YouTube stuff, and he does seniors hiking the Camino. So there's a whole group of people because, the Camino has this spiritual background, as a religious background, and they have this place on the trail where you lay your burdens down. So some people will bring a rock or something and lay their burdens down. And I thought,
Huh.
wow, that's
Huh.
powerful.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So audience, where would you like to go? And what would you like? What would you like, art workshops or mindfulness workshops or, more educational things about where we're going? So just let us know. Let us know. All right. So I think, wow, we've got lots to think about, don't we?
Hmm. Yes, we do. And I'm ready and eager. I just feel like now that I've kind of um started this, I just I'm in this mode now. It's like,
I know.
where can I go? Where would people want to go? What can I offer? What would be truly enriching and meaningful. So I'm kind of in this, like, a lot of research.
I
Yeah.
know. I know.
Yeah.
So, um, thanks for this. Has been so much fun. So much fun.
We knew
But
it would be, and we're going to have a version of this on my show. We're going to have Wendy. It's going to be this show with a new intro and maybe some different little stuff sprinkled in. But stay tuned for that and I'm sure Wendy, you'll post that on Zestful Aging podcast.
right. So you can find Nicole at zestfulaging.com, and her podcast links, the links to her coaching is there. And you can also email her if you have some ideas about where you want to go and what would make it great. You can email her at zestfulaging@gmail.com. So check that out. And I will put all of that in the show notes. And yeah, check out Road Scholar. Please go and support our sponsor, roadscholar.org/heyboomer. And be sure to use the Hey Boomer link. It lets them know that you heard about it here. And check out my new affiliate sponsor, Annie's with an S, Annie's Kit Clubs with an S, because there's lots of different ways you can go. So it's annieskitclubs.com, and use the promo code BOOMER at checkout to get 50% off your next craft kit. So that would be fun. Next week, my guest is someone named Rebecca Keller, and she's an internationally exhibited visual artist, a college professor at the School of the Art Institute in Chicago, a Fulbright scholar, and a recipient of awards from the National Endowment for the Arts. So very visually art focused, but she just wrote a book called You Should Have Known. And it's a murder mystery that takes place in a senior living facility. And I'm telling you, it captured my attention. I found it so well written, dialogue, everything. I mean, wow, from a visual artist to an author, she did a great job. So join me next week to meet Rebecca Keller. And I like to leave you with the belief that we can all live with curiosity, live with relevance, and live with courage. And we are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. My name is Wendy Green. Thank you, Nicole Christina. And this has been Hey Boomer.